listeners, to another episode of BizBlend, the podcast where mindset meets strategy for entrepreneurs, readers, and change makers ready to level up. Now, listeners, I'm Hossan as always, and today's guest brings over 30 years of international experience in educational leadership, recruitment, and mentorship. As a school leader turned consultant, author, and a global career strategist, my guest has guided countless educators and school recruiters towards success with practical, result oriented strategies. His personal motto, there are no problems, just wrong solutions, has become the cornerstone of his best selling School Jobs Mastery series. So, whether you are in education or business, today's conversation will give you sharp tools to rethink hiring, leadership, and career navigation in a competitive market. So, let's welcome our guest, Kelley Ridings. So, Kelly, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Well, Sana, thank you for having me here. I'm really pleased to be able to join you and to share with you today. So thanks for the invitation.
You are absolutely welcome, Kelly, and it's really, really such an honor to have you because I'm really, really curious to know that there are no problems, just wrong solutions. How exactly this philosophy has shaped your leadership and your writing process as well?
Well, that's a motto of mine that I've used for a very long time. I'm a complete believer in that, and I actually believe that people, there's two types of people in the world. There's either problem solvers or problem bringers, and I definitely am the problem solver type. And so I've just throughout my whole life, I can remember just working on solving problems and when there's a situation that happens, not just accepting it for what it is, but working to present solution. And so that's how I approach my work as a leader, whether I'm working in a school or whether I am doing my business as I am now in consulting. It's problem solving, and I do that every day. And so, certainly, as a writer, I have to problem solve as well. It's a little different now because maybe since I'm not working in schools, I'm not working as much with people and individuals, but I still face problems every day that I have to figure out how to counter and how to work around. And that's what all of us have to do when we're working in business or working in whatever our professions are. We face problems all the time, and so it's the mindset that we adopt about being a problem solver. And in my case, what I'm thinking about is just there are no wrong there's no bad answers. It's just sometimes you just don't have the right thing in place. And so you've just got to figure out what that is and work around figuring out what the problem is and addressing it. And it works every single time.
And I love how this mindset it flips the script from reactive to be being proactive. Um, so, in your experience, Kelly, what's the number one mistake school recruiters they make when they are trying to attract top talent? Um, I mean, if you can also highlight if there are more than one, and how can these loopholes or mistakes they can be fixed?
Well, that's, I think, is a question when you talk to most school leaders who do hiring, they're often going to bring up the topic about sometimes they've made some hires that have not been very good ones. And where I made those same mistakes just like other leaders in schools have done. And at some point, if we're problem solver, we have to look at problems as a collective, and we have to say, okay, if these things are happening enough, then the problem isn't the things that are coming at us, but rather we're the problem. Something that we're doing is not right. And so that's what I finally encountered. And I realized that, well, the problem in making some poor hiring decisions wasn't because just there was only bad candidates out there. It was something within what I was doing that wasn't a good part of the process. And I think the same thing is true for other leaders as well. And so for what when I started approaching the problem, trying to figure out how to solve it and to figure out what to do about it, I realized that the biggest problem that I face, and I believe other leaders face too, is the way we go about doing interviewing. Instead of looking at attitude for candidates and how does that attitude match with our organizations, instead, it we tend to focus on skills. And skills are actually eas easily learned in most cases by employees. And so instead of focus if people have the right attitude about approaching things with a growth mindset and being willing to learn new skills, then that problem is going to be easily solved. But the attitude problem can't be easily solved because attitude is who those people are deep down inside. And so it's just like what we were looking at and talked about just a moment ago. It's about the idea of people are either problem solvers or they're problem bringers. There's not going to be an in between, and so it's hard if somebody is not a problem solver. It's going to be hard for them to do otherwise. Just as it would be hard for me as a problem solver to suddenly become a problem bringer. That's just not who I am. And so it's a matter of attitude, and we have to use a specific strategy in order to make sure that we identify that attitude. And that's not just in schools; it can apply to any business and any place where people have to hire employees to work in their organizations.
You know, I am so happy that you mentioned about it, because this is something I realized gradually over in my career as well, that uh, m- yes, skills are important. It can be, industry specific skills, but what I believe that it's more about the attitude, because you're not only just contributing through your skills, but you know or just you're not just performing for the company or for the organization, for the team, but you are going to be a part of the culture, you are going to be a part of the team, you are going to uh, you know I think attitude is such an important uh, you know criteria, if we talk at an Uber level, and this is something I've really realized gradually, Kelly, and I'm so happy that you mentioned about it, because most of you're absolutely right. It's not only about the school or the education industry, but I think if we talk at an Uber level, most of the interviews, they are mm, mm, more focused on the experiences and the skills. But I believe very strongly that the conversations and discussions should be more about, attitude,
Yeah.
uh, kind of thought process they have.
Absolutely, Sana. I had done I looked at a study that was done by a well-known author by the name of Mark Murphy, and he had looked at 20,000 different employees that had been hired. And he discovered that in a period of, I think within 3 years, that half of those people had left their job that they had been hired for. And the reasons for those people leaving, 85% of it was about attitude. only 15% related to skills. And so when people have the right skills, or the right attitude rather, they're going to be able to figure out the skills. But as leaders, we have to figure out what are the attitudes that we need to have in the employees in our organizations. And so the attitudes aren't necessarily going to be the same for every organization. We have to figure out what's part of our work culture, just like you just mentioned about the importance of work culture. And so we have to figure out what is valuable and necessary for that in order to find the right people and hire them to come into our organizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Oh, great, great. Kelly, and your books, your courses, I mean, you have written Teach or Lead Abroad, and you also have created the gift hiring method.
Yes.
Um, so it is focused on both, these are focused on both job seekers and school recruiters.
Mhm.
Um, what's Are there any specific or just one maybe universal principle that both sides they tend to overlook in this hiring dynamics?
Well, I think it connects to similarly to what we've just been mentioning, but I think that really the for the job seeker, I always emphasize that prioritize finding the right school, not necessarily the job. And I think for the person who's recruiting, they have to prioritize finding the right person that fits the team, not just filling the position. And they're kind of if you think of it sort of like a coin, there's two sides to every coin. And when the school and the educator match, then it makes good sense, just like it does for any business. Everybody who hires employees, they need to find the right match for their organization. That's going to be the most successful employees that they have. And people who are working in a business, whatever that business is, they want to find a place that fits with who they are deep within and what resonates with them. And when we have found that, and we've stayed true to that process and stayed true to locating the right place and the right employee, we'll be successful.
Mm-hmm. And I would love to know about the gift hiring method. I mean, first of all, if you can give us a glimpse of this method, and I mean, was there any particular moment or a turning point in your experience in the leadership that kind of turned into or translated into this framework?
Well, many years ago, I had helped to hire somebody that didn't quite work out very well in the school, and it was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and it made me realize that there was something wrong with what I was doing in the process that made these kind of hires possible. No leader goes out to try to make a bad hire. We all put our best faith effort into doing it, but sometimes it doesn't work out. And so why did that happen? So I began researching to figure out what I could do differently. And so the process that I developed, which has now evolved into the gift hiring method, is one that has developed over years of putting this into practice. So it involves identifying um, looking for the attitude of those employees or the candidates that we're seeking to hire and trying to find who they genuinely are in throughout the interview process, not just the interview, but the whole process that they go through in order to find a job in our workplace. And so, gifts is just about gathering information and with purpose is the whole idea behind the gift method. And so it's designing a strategy to be able to find the right employees who match us. So it's about identifying our school's work culture and our identified work culture, what we want, our desired work culture, crafting questions that help us in the interview to find people who match that work culture that we want to create within our organization, structuring the interview by training the people who are doing the recruiting so that they can do the interviews in the proper format so that they can listen for and find those gifts that we want to find within the candidates. And then structuring a process that is one that is sustainable so that it's carried on from candidate to candidate in finding the right people to fit within our organizations. And it's also about keeping our recruiters faithful to the process as a whole, and that we have to do the certain things in order to make sure we find and hire the right people.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting. And um, you know, Kelly, I think that this is definitely such an interesting highlight of your career, that you have worked and lived across different countries, um, cultures. Um, how has this global lens changed the way you think about leadership and professional growth? I mean, are these very cultural specific, or the basics, the fundamentals, they still remain the same irrespective of the country or the culture or the people?
That's a really interesting idea, and I think Sana that the working internationally, it's allowed me the opportunity to work with people from around the globe. Not, and I'm working in schools, of course. So, I've worked both with educators who are from many, many different countries and regions, but I'm also working with families and people who are uh, students in our school that are coming from many different countries. So, there are cultural differences that we have to be aware of. And sometimes when using this method of the gift hiring method, sometimes there are going to be ways that people will answer questions that might be kind of culturally specific. And so, that's something that you have to be aware of and what those differences are, and then you have a different way of asking questions so that you can still get the information you need. You just may
Mhm.
not find it, uh, easily. So, if you ask it the same way of people in different cultures, they may respond in different ways. But I think for the most part, people value hard work, and that's actually a skill or a attitude that people have that's actually universally valued in most cultures around the world. But sometimes we have different ways of doing things, and so um, some cultures may do things one way, other cultures do things another way. Doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong or right, however it's done, but it's about the end result and getting to that. And so we have to be aware of that when we're working internationally and we're hiring people internationally. We need to be aware of those differences.
Hmm, I agree. I agree. And I think with remote work and international hiring, um, I think this is so relevant for our listeners as well. I mean, those who are, I mean, irrespective of any industry they are in. But I think for those who are thinking about global expansion or remote teams, I believe this is definitely going to be relevant. And Kelly, let me just, you know, uh, um, kind of flip the discussion here. That some would say that in hiring industry or hiring systems, structure like your gift method, they would be too rigid for the real human decisions, because it all depends on case to case, on people to people, person to person. How do you respond to critics who believe that hiring should rely more on instinct and the real time chemistry? It shouldn't be very structured.
Well, that you're right. There certainly are um, people who are doing hiring that believe that the process is more fluid and that it's about luck, it's about how it feels. But actually, I think that can get us in trouble because, most people, when they're going into an interview, they're going to be calm. They're going to be in a cool brain moment when they're going to be answering questions and it's going to seem quite reasonable. Everything is going to look great. But you really have to dig into figuring out who these people are and what makes them tick. And you have to look at all the clues that are there. And generally, they're going to tell us what those clues are. In my experience, I mean, I've probably done, um, well, I don't know, can't even say exactly how many interviews, but certainly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews using this method. And always, though, those attitudes can come through. And then we have to then look at it and figure out, okay, which are the ones that are these, they're what I call red flags. And you have to look at what are those red flags and why are they there and what do they mean? And sometimes they're not necessarily going to be a problem, but we have to dig into it a little bit and figure out what it is. And sometimes they are going to be a problem. And we have to figure that out. Certainly, how we feel about people when we're talking to them is important, but it's not the only thing. And we can't get fooled by those feelings because everybody, whether we're a candidate or whether we're a recruiter, we walk into an interview with the best of intentions. But sometimes a place just isn't a good fit. It's not a good match for us. And we have to figure out, uh, what are the good matches and how to get there. And so it takes more of a studied process to be able to do it. We have to have a little flexibility because not every situation is the same. We have to use our judgment sometimes about what do those flags mean. But in the end, we've got to make a decision based on what's best for our organization. And that's where we have to go to the science of the method.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense.
I think another thing I'm just thinking of as well, Sana, is that we have to understand the psychology of how we are thinking, both as recruiters and as business owners, and how candidates are thinking as well when we're looking for a job. And so we as recruiters probably are we want to fill a position. We want to be as a quick and get it done and move on to other things that are maybe more interesting or fulfilling for us. And that that kind of wanting to rush to get that done and completed can sometimes be okay because it gives us a sense of urgency, but it can also cause us to make mistakes. And we have to be aware of that we don't want to rush to finish it just to get it done, just to check a box. But rather, we've got to be aware that we've got to make the good decisions and keep our true to our process in order to make it work for us and our organizations. And as candidates, it's the same thing. We can walk into an interview and we just want to get a job. And so we overlook the fact that, well, maybe this place has some warning flags, but I want a job and I want to get a paycheck and I'm worried because I've either don't have a job or I'm going to be out without a job very quickly and I've got to find something. And so then I'm going to be in a rush and make some decisions that maybe aren't in my best interest in the long run. Cause then once I've made a rush decision and then I go, oh, this place doesn't really fit me very well. So in both cases for recruiters and candidates, we've got to hold back and understand our psychology and how we go about um, approaching a job search and hiring.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's on both the ends. And I think it's better at the very early stage itself before it becomes too late. It's not only from the recruiter perspective, but also from the candidate or the employee perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Because it's better to find it during the interview process than to wait till when you've actually gone there, or in the case of my world where I'm living internationally, you travel across to a new country to move somewhere for a job, and then you find out that's the wrong place. Wow, that's not the time to do that.
True, true, right. Kelly, so before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and get a hold of your best-selling School Jobs Mastery series and also explore more about gift hiring method, what will be the best way?
Well, there's always my website at edunetpro.com. That's edunetpro.com. And so that's one way to be able to connect. But then also, there is through Amazon where my books are available, but you can also find my books through my website as well. So some people don't have access to Amazon in their country, depending on where they're living. And so if they don't, then they can also connect and ask me through my website, and I'm able to help people that way. So go onto my website, sign up for my uh, email list, and I can keep in touch with people and help them out, and to be able to uh, get them connected to my books, to my courses that I offer, to help people as they're going through their searches, whether as a candidate or through as a school recruiter. And then also I have some mentoring groups that I work with as well through my work with edgenetpro.com as well.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes. And Kelly, this was certainly a glimpse to the golden nuggets that you have shared in your book, School Jobs Mastery series. And thank you so much for this empowering, eye-opening conversation. Um, and definitely, I think the listeners are definitely going to have so many to take away, whether they're hiring their next team member or they're searching for that once in a lifetime role. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sana. I appreciate that you have this um, podcast available to help people as they're working through their businesses and developing their businesses. And I'm glad to be able to share a little bit with you and have this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for your kind words. And to all the listeners out there, be sure to check out the School Jobs Mastery series and explore the courses and the mentorship opportunities from Kelly. And also, I believe Kelly reminded us that the key to success isn't just in effort, it is also in choosing the right solution. Until then, this is BizBlend, where business meets breakthrough. Until next time, keep blending strategy with soul. And I'm your host, Sarah, signing off. Thank you.